Hi there. Thank you very much, Deb, for having me here. All right, well, this story takes place in the 1990s when I am a teenager, and it's about 3 weeks before Christmas, and my beloved family dog, Pete, inadvertently ate rat poison. And basically, my dog Pete was about 3 years old at the time. He was a member of the family, big floppy ears, a mutt, a half shepherd, half lab, half something else, a few other dogs mixed in. And we loved that dog. And but we also had a big rat problem at our house. And my dad, being Scottish, chose an exterminator of ill repute, let's say. He was the cheapest exterminator in the Yellow Pages. My dad always used to like to say that he was Scottish, he had small hands and deep pockets. So this exterminator came over, and unbeknownst to us, what this exterminator did was he just spread the cubes of rat poison all over the basement floor and all over our yard. And unfortunately, our big beloved family dog, Pete, found the rat poison before any of the rats and pretty much lapped it up. We didn't figure this out because rat poison can affect larger animals much slower than the rats for about a week. And that's when we recognized that our beloved dog Pete was very, very sick. And we figured it out, and we rushed Pete to the animal hospital. And that's where the vets confirmed our worst fears, that Pete had consumed a lot of rat poison. And they then, in their softest, most polite, most endearing terms, said that Pete was a goner, that he was a lost cause, that there was no saving him because if we had come in the day he had eaten it, maybe there was a chance. But a week into it, there was just no chance. And then they explained all the absolutely horrible things that occur when an animal eats rat poison, including internal hemorrhaging and lack of blood. It was just awful. And so the vets then said, we recommend that instead of your dog going through a painful, prolonged death, we put him down right now. And of course, I was devastated. And now there were a couple of members of my family who thought, he's a lost cause, and that should happen. And I begged my parents in the lobby of that animal hospital to please just force the vets to treat Pete at great expense, mind you, which my dad was nervously eyeing. And I wouldn't let up. And finally, my parents relented. And day after day after day that December, I went down to that animal hospital, and Pete was laid out unconscious, tubes and wires all over him, and they were administering medicine, whatever they do. And scars began showing on his sides of his skin opening up, and they were trying to treat that. It was rather gruesome. And every day I would hug him and stroke him and lift up his big floppy ear and talk into his ear. And after weeks of this, with those bills piling up, one day when I was up and talking to his ear and petting him, at the other end of his body, his tail went. And it's the flame. I always get choked up with the flame, Deb. And the vet was treating some other dog who had eaten a sponge or something across the way and turned and said, "Did Pete just..." I said, "Yeah, look." And then Pete's eyes had been rolled up into his head because he was basically in a coma. His eyes rolled into his sockets, and his pupils got small and focused on me with recognition. The next day, Pete was able to lift his head and lick my hand and keep thumping his tail. The vets said, though they were administering medicine, that they believed that Pete survived because he knew that he wasn't alone and that he was loved. And so I then convinced the vets to let Pete out of the animal hospital earlier than they wanted on Christmas Day. And I will never forget the sight of Pete very stiffly walking from the car in his bandaged sides and going into the kitchen and into the living room and then turning into the living room where we all were, our family, and his ears perk up and he smiles in that way that only dogs can smile, with the tongue hanging out. And then, despite the injuries, he waddles like crazy over to the Christmas tree, and we all pour our love onto that dog. And I tell you, none of the gifts under the tree that year mattered. Our dog was alive, our dad was forgiven, and whenever I am faced with a situation of despair or grief, I think of Pete's thumping tail. So, show the love and never give up hope on lost causes. Happy holidays.